Hola amigos, bien ok. Buenas noches desde Medellín. Hoy quiero hablar un poco con el tema, el dificultades para hablar en grupos. Conversaciones grupal es el tema de hoy. Entonces, empecemos. So, good evening from Medellín. Now the topic for today is group conversations. So conversations with more than one of your friends, how to navigate that, some of the problems and how to overcome them. So today we were very fortunate. We had some of our friends come to visit us for lunch, and we haven't seen them in a while, so there's lots to talk about. It was very nice and we enjoyed it a lot. But obviously for me this was a challenge because there were now more than two of us at the dinner table, and now we're a group of sort of 6 or 7 people all talking together on different topics. How do you make sense of it? Because if you're not one of the native speakers of this language, what you hear is lots and lots of overlapping conversations, and it's quite confusing because you're talking to your neighbour about one thing, but then you hear someone else talking as well, and you can't work out quickly whether what they're saying is to join your conversation, to say something like that, or they're talking to the other person on the other side of the table about something else. And it gets confusing because you're not sure which part of the conversation you should be listening to, which part you could join into, or when you could ask a question. And it's very easy to get lost. Often with comic results, I admit, because you can ask the wrong question at the wrong time. But so really, this is thinking about, okay, so how do you get around this? How do you make this conversation, this group conversation, easier? What can you do? Well, you could just sit back, not speak as much, and listen more. Because, as we've said before in other videos, just by listening, this helps us a lot. As learners of the new language, this will help us a lot because we get to listen to loads of new vocabulary, lots of useful phrases, which are often repeated, and different people's style of speech, different accents, different types of speech. So that in itself is very useful. But particularly as adult learners, we want to take part more in these type of conversations because as grown-ups, let's face it, most of what we're going to be doing, if we're either at work with new groups of people or we're out socially with our new groups of friends or families, and everyone's going to be talking. So what to do? So I was reflecting on this today, like, well, what did I do? And actually, if I think about it, my tactic with this is fairly easy. It might be one you use yourself, but I'll explain it. So what I tend to do is, obviously at the beginning, you could just listen. This helps you get a feel for the conversation and work out whether, are we all talking about the same thing? Is there only one person talking, for instance? Or are we now talking about lots of different things? When it's the second and everyone's talking about lots of different things, individual conversations across the table sort of thing, I tend then to focus just on talking to my neighbour, and I continue that conversation. But if I hear something said by someone else that sounds like it might be interesting or it might be relevant to what I was talking about or something I want to say something about, rather than interrupt on my own and just say, oh, can I ask a question? No, what I tend to do is I use the person I'm talking to, I talk to my neighbour, I ask them the question. So I might say something like, what did John just say? And this lets my neighbour, who I'm assuming in this case is, again, one of the native speakers of this language and who is better able to understand all of the threads of the conversation, not just the one they're having with me, they're better able to either offer me a quick explanation, oh no, John's talking about this, or if I have a question I wanted to ask, they can interrupt the conversation more easily on my behalf and say something, oh John, Graham wants to ask you a question. Now that's useful because then you get their full attention when you ask your question, and then you get a better answer. So it might be less distracting. So I tend to cheat slightly. So I tend to use the person I'm talking to, I ask my question of them first. I ask them basically to interpret what's been going on generally in the group conversation, all the different conversations. I might say, well, I've lost track of this. What's the topic now? What are we talking about? And then nearly always I get a very quick summary of what's happening because they're more able to very easily follow all the different threads of the conversation. So that's very helpful. And that means I don't have to keep interrupting the group conversation or lots of smaller conversations. I just ask my neighbour, what are we all talking about now? What's the topic? What's the theme? I've lost it. I'm sorry, I've lost track of what we're talking about. So that's an easy way to get back into the conversation, because clearly by now, hopefully your level is at a point where you can actually ask a proper question. It's just finding the right time to do it. So I cheat a bit. It's a cheat, I admit, but I get whoever I'm talking to interrupt on my behalf, and then I can ask the question. So that's my top tip, my tactic to help you round it a little bit. But obviously remember, if it is just really noisy, I mean, the trick really is for us still is to listen more than we speak, because we're going to learn more, we're going to pick up more useful stuff just by listening. But now we're obviously able to express opinions more easily and ask questions and things within conversations. So rather than risk perhaps interrupting at the wrong point in someone else's conversation, because perhaps we misheard what they said or something, my cheat with this is to say, talk to your neighbour, the person you're having the direct conversation with, ask them what's going on. What are they talking about? What did John say? Something like that. Get them to interpret that for you, give you the summary, and then you can judge whether you want to ask it a question or rejoin that conversation, something like that. So that's my thought for the day. I hope that's useful. Déjame saber en los comentarios. Let me know in the comments how you get on. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheerio for now.